As lenders work to stay on top of advances in artificial intelligence, companies are hiring the top minds in mortgage technology. My name is Kimberley Haas, and I will be the host of this Advancements in Technology podcast. For this episode, we spoke with Dan Sogorka. He officially joined Rocket Pro TPO as its general manager in September. Sogorka has been running mortgage tech companies for the last 25 years and said 2025 will be a big one when it comes to revolutionary changes in the industry.
Well, why don't we start by just having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So, yeah, happy to do that. I've been doing, for better or for worse, running mortgage technology companies for the last 25 years. So, been through a lot of cycles, a lot of different size companies, startups, venture-backed, private equity-backed, IPO'd with the company. So, just a really broad experience in the space, which has been amazing. I love the industry. I love the people. I love the challenges that we continue to work through, and I'm really excited about where we are now, and specifically where we're going with Rocket. After my last job, I took about 8 months off, which I had never done in my career before, and I really promised myself I was going to look at everything. I was going to look inside a mortgage, outside a mortgage, technology, and really, the thesis that I came up with, which is not unique, but that, the use of generative AI is going to disrupt a lot of places. And so where do you want to be as that's coming to fruition, right? And so I determined a couple of things. One, I wanted to be with a company that felt like that was going to happen, and wanted to embrace that. And two, I wanted to be at a place with enough scale where you could really change, the industry in a meaningful way. And in our space, there's really only a couple kind of technology companies that have that kind of reach. And then when you look at, the originators and the servicers, I didn't necessarily want to work at a bank, and so that really left kind of these larger non-banks as kind of primary targets to really move the needle, if you will, relative to technology and business together. And so I'd always had a ton of respect for Rocket. I know some people on the board. I've worked with them again over the past 25 years in different capacities. So once we started talking, and I met, kind of the new team and understood where they were going and the caliber of people they were adding, this kind of suddenly rose to the top of my list as to like what I want. It went from like, oh, let's talk to them, to like, I told my wife at one point, I'm like, I'm going to be like really disappointed if it doesn't work out, because I think I've decided like this is what I want to do. So it was a fun process to go through, and I'm really happy with the choice I made.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. It's so important that we feel excited and, you know, determined and challenged every day. You mentioned that there are some challenges broadly in this space. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, and then we can segue more into how you're planning to approach those challenges within your role at Rocket Pro TPO.
Sure, yeah. This, when you really dig into how mortgages are originated and serviced, a lot of the underpinning technology is still very old. One, and two, it's very siloed in terms of, I would say, enabling data to get to the right place at the right time. So, because of that, you also have a lot of things that have to happen several times by different people in different places. And you really still have paper and documents like driving the process forward, right? So when you look at how that makes consumers feel, they don't like the process. There's not a high level of satisfaction. There's a lot of anxiety associated with it. It takes a long time. And, this is something that we feel, should be a joyous occasion in someone's life when they're dealing with, a lot of times their biggest
Mhm.
investment that they'll ever make, right? So, I think around that, the user experience, the ability to bring a lot of different parties together at the right time and streamline that process and really just provide kind of certainty and transparency is really the opportunity. And, the reason why we don't have that a lot is because of, we haven't really replaced the guts of the system and really leveraged a lot of technology that exists now throughout the process. So that's really what I've done my whole career, which is try to be like, what is the best technology that's available now, and how do we apply it to processes to make things kind of better, faster, cheaper? And in the early 2000s, that was getting people off phone and fax and onto the internet, and then in the mid 2010s or whatever, it was like, now how do we incorporate the phone into it, right? And now in 2024, it's how do we incorporate Gen AI into it, right? So you really have like these paradigm shifts in technology that enable you to move forward. And it's just interesting that over those past 25 years, the underlying core platforms have really stayed the same, when you look at the core loan origination systems and servicing platforms. So, and then, in kind of our defense, you do have a lot of regulation in this area as well, right? You have banks that are highly regulated, you have federal regulations, you have things like RESPA and the CFPB, and then you have all the state regulations. So you have to always be complying with a lot of rules at the same time, and you have that there's the opportunity for significant pain if you make mistakes, right? So you have to kind of like be cautious. Safety and soundness are paramount, but you also want to move forward, right? That's part of what makes it fun.
Now, how do you plan to take some of these revolutions and changes in technology, particularly with generative AI, and apply them to some of these older systems that, as you said, are a little bit more antiquated?
Yeah, so that's the huge opportunity here and what I'm most excited about, right? Like we have a great TPO business today. We have a phenomenal retail business today, and I would say we're kind of just getting started in terms of scratching the surface with AI. So we have kind of a base number of AI products today that we're rolling out onto both of those platforms. And I would really call it kind of, it's like the first inning of the game, right? So you hear us talk about things like Rocket Logic Synopsis, um, Pathfinder, right? Where we're starting to leverage kind of large language models and things like the ability to transcribe phone calls, the ability to show people the loans that are applicable for their particular customers, right? And so we want to give all these tools to our broker partners so that they have the ability to take advantage of them because they're not in a position to spend millions of dollars to build these things on their own, right? So we're kind of creating these kind of highly customized, curated products that then we can bring to the point of sale and allow our partners to use them just like our bankers would. So it's a huge opportunity and something we're working on literally every day. I've been working on it since 4:30 a.m. this morning, since I'm still on Eastern time, which is like, how do we, let's look at our process and where are we injecting all of these things to make things better, faster, cheaper for our partners. Because again, it all comes back to me to a couple of things. The business demands speed and certainty, right? So what's the best product for my customer? Can I be approved for that product? And what rate am I locking into, right? So that's like technically what we're trying to do as a broker. And then these other products are basically like, how do you use large language models to be super smart at everything there is relative to mortgage at the touch of your finger, so you can know everything that all the top experts know? And then how can you spend the most time with your customer not taking notes, not having to write down things. Hold on, let me write that down. Let me fill out this piece of paper. Let me fill out this form. We want our brokers to be able to have a conversation like you and I are having. Let's talk about it. Oh, what's your name? What's your address? Oh, is your wife going to be on the loan? And really have a conversation where both parties feel comfortable, but all of that's being transcribed. And at the same time, that's filling out all the forms. And so at the end of a phone call, instead of saying, okay, now let me go fill out these forms and I'm going to send it to you and you have to do a bunch of stuff, it's all done, right? And you just say, hey, oh, there was one thing I missed. Can I have that? And then, we'll move on from there, right? So really taking out all the manual things that traditionally you've had to do to automate to let people be great at what they're great at. And to us, it's for brokers, it's that relationship with consumers in their local market.
Yeah. How are brokers embracing this technology? I know that there's been a big push this year. We've certainly followed it here at the Mortgage Note when it comes to things like Rocket Logic, like Pathfinder. What are you finding as you step into this role as far as brokers really being able to embrace these products and be successful with them?
Yeah, I think, again, I think it's one, it's, we're early innings, right? And so we're starting that process of doing it. One of our kind of superpowers at Rocket is we're great at training brokers. So, we do a great job of bringing them in and training them both on how to be a broker, but also how to use technology. So that'll be a big part of early 2025, which is really putting all of this into their hands and kind of training them on it. But what I found again in the first couple of weeks of this, I've actually spoken with a lot of our partners, and they're very hungry for technology. There's a little bit of this misnomer out there, of the industry not being tech savvy, but every broker owner, that I've engaged with wants to do more tech. A lot of them are building their own technology, whether it's on Salesforce or something else. They are really hungry for this stuff. So that's what's going to make, I think, next year really phenomenal, because it's kind of like the end of this year is getting all the playbook together, putting everything in line, packaging the technology together, and then 25 is really like rolling that out across the industry at scale in a way that I think is going to be really meaningful and kind of disruptive is not the right word, because we're not trying to disrupt the space. We're trying to really enable brokers to operate at a much higher level from a technology perspective that they've been able to operate from before. So that's going to be really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think in the press release, your comment said, and I wrote this down prior to an interview, that you want to supercharge brokers. So I like that. I
Yeah,
can envision them being supercharged with all this technology
yeah.
and power at their fingertips.
When we engage with our brokers now, it's an interesting time. We talked about, like you mentioned, the intersection of technology and how that's going to help. But you also have, a a housing environment that's a little bit stuck, right? Where, we've had these kind of higher rates for longer. You have a lot of people locked in at lower rates that don't want to give those rates up. You have affordability issues. So all of our brokers and the people they talk to, they're feeling all that pain, right? So it's very interesting. Like the week I joined, we get this little mini refi boom, right? So like, the rates tick down and you can just see it happening, right? All of our businesses completely start lighting up because especially, you have like this, I call it like a primed pump where everybody's waiting now for each tick down in rates. It's going to set off, these mini refi boomlets as we used to call them. And depending how far rates drop, right, you have a certain amount of homeowners that open up for that. Related to that is the purchase market, which is extremely important to us, right? And is a huge piece of our relationship with brokers. And so they're basically working with consumers, helping them navigate this challenge of, the homes I were looking at that used to be $500,000 had a payment of X, now it's a payment of Y, and I can't really afford that. So they're constantly tracking affordability relative to rates, right? So as rates come down a little bit, that payments comes down a little bit, and the best brokers are really, again, spending a lot of time with their customers to educate them on when is the right time to do something, right? Because you always have this trade-off in terms of waiting. for the market to come down. And when it doesn't, it just gets harder and harder to afford that payment, right? And so, and we've just been in this really unique position over the last couple of years where housing has really increased, right? And so a lot of people are thinking now, listen, if you get in and you buy a house now, you can always refinance when rates come down, but you can continue to take advantage of the home price appreciation because there's a lot of other factors in there where, if you do your research, there's a shortage of homes, right? So it's not, you can't really do the math where you think, oh, prices are going to come down, I'm just going to wait and buy then. So, these are complicated things to talk through with consumers. And that's why we want brokers focused on studying that, learning that, understanding the market, talking to the consumer, bringing that information back to us. What products do we need to meet the market to do that with, rather than filling out documents and doing paperwork back in the office, right? So that's really what we're trying to do is create that environment where they can be that expert to really help people. And then we can provide the best products and services in the background.
Yeah, I think that the most successful brokers, like you said, are the ones that are really able to explain things to people. There's a lot of misinformation out there still, even now, a couple years into this whole kind of cycle where people have said, oh, housing prices are going to go down. We've seen time and time again, they're not.
Right.
So you have to create a really strong financial strategy. And it sounds like with the technology that you're implementing, brokers will be able to focus on that and really, like you said, help people home.
Yeah. I mean, I envision a world not far away where, the broker, you're having those conversations, then you're out at an open house and you literally take a picture of a QR mark and you're approved. You're good to go. Here's your number, right? Like that, we're not far away from that. And if you think about just all the time that's saved in that type of paradigm, and the more customers a single broker could service without having to do all that work in parallel, right? Like meet with one person, do paperwork the rest of the day to try to get it done, and then maybe tomorrow you meet with someone else, versus, hey, I'm doing 5, 6, 7, 8 loan locks a day because it's just so easy to do it from a technology perspective, right? That really helps people. That's how you grow a business, right? Like dramatically.
Thank you for listening to this Advancements in Technology podcast. If you would like to share what you are seeing in your market, please reach out to us at info@themortgagenote.org. Once again, my name is Kimberley Haas. Have a great day.